You know, if you come up with a new kirtan tune, or a new dance, or a new way of worshiping Krishna, that's not a problem for him. Might be a problem for some devotees that we know, but oh well, that's their problem. You know, our idea is that there are certain things that come down through the tradition that we're not interested in changing, because it doesn't give us any advantage to change them. Like, for a good example is the arti ceremony. The arti ceremony is, I don't know how many thousands of millions of years old. You know, it's very, very, very traditional. And all the branches of Vaishnavism, all the branches of Vedic culture and civilization, they accept this ceremony as this is how you worship any great personality. Okay, so that's not available for change. You know, like we've seen this. I don't know if I talked about that. I talked to my disciples about this, where we were talking about the arti ceremony. That I've seen in India, you know, the artiste brahmanas in Bombay, in Mumbai, you know, they'll do the arti and they have the bell. You know, they don't just ring the bell; they ring the bell, and then they offer the lamp, you know, with all these. It's like, come on, you know, this is not about you. This is about Krishna. So the pujari, the actual mood of the pujari, is to make himself as inconspicuous as possible. They hide behind the curtain if possible, and they just see your hand come out and offer it. And the idea is that attention should be directed towards Krishna, not towards the pujari, not towards the priest. See? So there's a way of doing artistic things. Well, another thing would be kirtan, for example. If you come up with a new kirtan tune or a new kirtan style or something like that, that's fine, that's great. But don't do it in a way that advertises your own false personality, that, oh, I came up with this far-out tune. You know? One of the formative experiences I had in devotional service was to hang out with Vishnu John Swami. And Vishnu John, of course, is a very talented, awesomely talented musician. He was the guitar player for the Jefferson Airplane before they got famous. In fact, when they got famous, he quit because he didn't like all this nonsense that went along with fame. But he was so good, he could play anything on the guitar. I mean, he was just an outrageous guitar player. But he never played the guitar. He renounced the guitar when he became a devotee. Yeah, and all he would play was the devotional instruments, the Vedānta-sūtra, and like that. But Srila Prabhupada specifically instructed him to compose original kirtans and original melodies. And he did, and some of them quite beautiful. And we did on that one or two CDs, all Vishnu John's original melodies, which many of them had never been recorded nicely. Like Gobina, Gobina, Mama Vedānta-sūtra, Durjaya Durlabha. This is the original melody of Vishnu John. You hear it everywhere now. Even in India they do it. But actually it was composed by Vishnu John. And he composed other very exquisite melodies for different songs. So when he would sing these songs, though, it's not like he said, and now this next song is one that I composed by, you know. He never said that, you know. He never said anything. He would just start chanting in his usual humble way, and in such a way that Radha and Krishna were glorified. The deities were glorified by this beautiful, exquisite song. So that should be our mood in everything we do. And just like in the dancing, you know, if you go in most temples, you see the devotees dancing, and it looks like they're having an Olympic jumping contest. I can jump higher than you. Watch me, watch me. You know, that's their mood. And but in the actual temples, which are very hard to find these days, where they do the nice Devi Dasi style of dancing, you'll see that the dancing style is completely different, and it's for the deity's enjoyment. It's not for the devotees. You know. So this we want to cultivate, and we'll be doing this when we have the appropriate place and time. We'll try to come up with original dancing styles that are pleasing to Kṛṣṇa, that glorify Kṛṣṇa. Not that we want to become big stars or anything like that, but we want to please the Lord with nice devotional arts. So, any more questions? Oh boy, they're full of them today. That's great.
Another one from Uddhava. Babaji is there is one of the Vedic arts, number 43. It says, quote, "The art of training and engaging rams, cocks, and quails in fighting. Please kindly explain in which context this art is used."
In the context of a great king. Kings like games, and they bet on these games. And sometimes they'll even bet like their whole kingdom. It's crazy, you know. It's like an addiction. Because the Kshatriyas are very, very passionate. So they also display some of the qualities and also the faults of being very passionate, and that's one of them. So not only those, but horses are trained for fighting. You know, a horse that you ride into a battle has to be trained in a certain way so he doesn't freak out. Other animals, elephants and like that, are also used in battle and are trained by the Kshatriyas, and they will have a staff of people that's what they do. They train these animals, and of course part of the game that they have is Kshatriyas like competition. They like games. They like chess and dice, and you know, so also animal fighting and like that. If you ever go past, well, remember when we were camped in that cabin on the road to Kūrareva, and in the back, after they cut the hay, where the horses were, then they put those young bulls, and we'd see them every day fighting. They weren't fighting very hard. They were just youngsters. They were just practicing. But every day you'd see they would start butting heads and locking their horns and pushing back and forth, fighting like that. Yeah, so Kshatriyas look at that and they go, you know, they like that. So, you know, there's always a need for that in a palace scene. Oh, these are nice roses. I thought you were going to ask about the one of making airplanes from flowers.
Oh, yeah.
That's another devotional art.
Oh.
They make, you know, like interplanetary airplanes out of flowers. Yeah.
Okay. Next question is from Prasad. Humble pranams. I am curious about the concept of spiritual time. As we speak, I assume Krishna's Leelas are happening in the spiritual world. How is the concept of time in the spiritual world, which is beyond material time?
See our video in the 2012 series, the Matrix Singularity series. I think it's session number 2, which talks about fractal time. And we go into all the higher dimensions of time and all that stuff. It's a very technical subject. But basically, Prabhupada says that the influence of time in the spiritual world is conspicuous by its absence. In other words, In the material world, we're forced to go through time. But in the spiritual world, we can play with time. We're not forced. Huh? We can move in any direction in time, and time has several dimensions. It's not just one-dimensional. Yeah. So time in the spiritual world is a very complex subject, and it has a lot to do with consciousness. The two go together. But that's like such a big subject that I don't want to get into it right now. So watch that video, please, and then write me if you have any more questions.
I believe this is it.
That's it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh boy. Okay.